Right, hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of AI and Oats, which is my daily show where I answer some questions on AI and talk about AI news. But firstly, before we begin, who am I? Well, my name is Alistair, this is my channel, welcome. Here I teach Claude Code and Codex for knowledge work and business use cases, but I also run an AI consulting and training business called Dux, and so if you'd like to see how we can work with your company to help you grow revenues and implement AI in an actually useful manner, then feel free to get in touch through the link in the description. And I also have a school community where I go into even more detail in terms of the actual skills and systems I use for Claude Code and Codex. And again, the link for that is in the description. But now that the preliminaries are out of the way, let's jump into the questions. Right, so the way this works is during the day, Codex, I have a Codex kind of automation or loop, whatever you want to call it, that goes out and searches the web, look through different forums and news articles and stuff, and puts interesting questions about AI all into one place in this slide deck. And then what I do is I come and answer them, but usually I just ramble. Also, if, ideally we would have questions from the comments as well, but we are not a big enough channel for that at the moment. So if you do leave questions in the comments, I will definitely answer them. Right, so first one, anyone using Codex to audit Claude Code? I think I created an endless loop. Right, I think I was mentioning this yesterday a little bit, but I believe this is a reference to the fact that you can install the Codex MCP into Claude Code, and then you can sign into your OpenAI account, and then you can use Codex models within the Claude Code harness. And I think one of the common places, and probably it's kind of the way I do that a bit. I also use just the Codex app itself, but one of the most common ways I use Codex in the Claude Code when in Claude Code itself is that I will have it review plans, which I think is what this is referencing as well, review plans before I build them out. And so I guess the argument here is that, or the question here is, Codex seems to be auditing it to such a standard that it's constantly telling it needs to be rebuilt. Which I guess if you do get stuck in a loop, maybe either have kind of very clear criteria of what needs, have very clear criteria of the quality you need the plan to be, essentially, because presumably Codex could always find ways to improve it, but if you have a clear quality bar somewhere, and you communicate that to Codex via Claude Code, then that might help. I have to say, this isn't a problem I've encountered myself, but I have actually seen quite a few people mention it, which makes me think it probably is a bit of an issue. The other thing I would say that works quite well for me is I use both Claude Code and Codex, but I tend to use them more as individual workers within the same system. So I will often have them review and hand off work between each other, but I will normally go into the app, and so they'll all be working in the same kind of folder, filing system, whatever you want to call it, AI operating system, if you'd like to put a fancy word on it, or fancy term on it, and they'll all be working within that, so they'll have access to the same folder and files, which means I can very easily say, Claude has just added this plan, have a look at it, tell me what you think, or Claude has just made these changes made to this, to the website, what do you think of the new copy, does it all look good, that sort of thing. And I find that works quite well because they do often have slightly different ideas. So in terms of, in fact, I was making clips for YouTube and I had Codex do the initial clips with a kind of loop comparing them to the example clips I wanted them to be like, and it made it some of the way. And then I said, and then I took it back to Claude and was like, okay, this is what Codex has done, but to be honest, I think these few things are wrong. What do you think? Claude then came back with another, review of it and its own version of the clips. And so between the two as collaborators, I did eventually get to clips with which I was happy. So for me, that's the way I kind of prefer to use Codex and Claude Code, and I find that doesn't run into the same loops, issues of review endlessly. And I think that works by having a good kind of folder structure, which I think really is becoming more and more key as people start doing more and more of their work with these coding agents, even if that work is not coding per se, since they do live in folders mostly, or repos, depending, so that's what I would suggest, is maybe don't, or just have a set number of passes that you're going to do in terms of having Codex review it before you actually just proceed which is probably not the best strategy. But I'd say maybe use them each individually, but working in the same system would be a more effective way if you find you are getting stuck in a loop. Any way to run Gemini, Kimi, GPT inside Claude Code? Well, yes, we've already been, I guess, the first two questions, if you want to call them two separate questions, has already, I guess, at some length gone on about running GPT, which is, what Codex is, in Claude Code. And then Gemini, you can install the anti-gravity. I'm pretty sure you can do this because I've done it. I don't use it a whole lot, to be honest. I think the general consensus is like Gemini is not really competing much at the moment when it comes to the coding agents. I don't know, that's my opinion, but that's what I hear people say, and I kind of feel the same way. I certainly don't use it myself. For me, it's Claude Code and Codex, and then maybe some Chinese models through OpenRouter as well if I want something very cheap. But you can use Gemini. I believe you need to install anti-gravity. I think it's like AGY is the term you need to use to install it, but quite frankly, if you just tell Claude Code, help me run Gemini inside Claude Code, I need to install AGY or something like that, you can install it. You have to run that in the terminal and then set up anti-gravity in your terminal, but then I think you can use it in Claude Code. Using Kimi, I would suggest go through OpenRouter, because if you go through OpenRouter, what you can then do is run any model basically, but like Qwen, Kimi, DeepSeek, and you can run them inside Claude Code. What you need to do is install something called LLM, something along those lines. Claude can walk you through it, and I have actually double checked this. I was just double checking this now with Claude Code, because I saw this, and you definitely can run using OpenRouter. You can run models inside, any model you want, like Kimi, inside Claude Code. And so I was, to test this, basically what I said is, so yesterday I was like, do we have access to OpenRouter things? Yes, we do. Yes, you need the LLM OpenRouter plugin, is apparently what you need. And then I was asking it if we could use Kimi K3. He says we can. And then I told it to do something quickly, because I need it for this YouTube video, to see if it will make a landing page promoting itself. I guess Kimi K3 is notoriously slow, so we'll see whether this finishes before the video ends. If it does, I will see the result. But I guess fundamentally the point is that yes, you can run other models in Claude Code. Maybe you'd say that this isn't quite running other models in Claude Code fully, because the kind of orchestrator layer, the brain behind messaging Kimi K3 and everything, is still Fable 5 here in this example. So if you're talking about subbing out the actual, I guess, model of Claude Code and keeping purely the harness, I'm not sure if that's possible. But if you're just talking about calling other models, like calling GPT-5.6 or calling Kimi K3, that's absolutely possible. So anyway, we will see if that example with Kimi K3 finishes before the end of the video. If it does, I will check it out, but if not, then sorry about that. But it is indeed possible. Right, so this person had GPT-5.6 Ultra make a video game and claims it did even better than Fable 5. I guess that's just a question between 5.6 Ultra and Fable 5. Is there a big difference in intelligence? Probably not. Probably not a huge gap. I mean, personally, from my experience, I feel that Fable 5 does feel like the most intelligent model available now. Where it falls down is kind of in speed compared to 5.6. I will still probably use 5.6 for a lot of my kind of work. My main work day to day is kind of my daily driver at the moment, because as I keep mentioning, and I've definitely mentioned it before, I really like Codex when it comes to doing remote sessions. I also find that with the new voice mode on, so I like to be out walking, all that sort of thing, and working on my phone, doing stuff on Codex on my laptop a lot. And the voice mode, the new OpenAI voice mode, is even better for that in a way. It certainly does something that the Claude voice mode and others can't, in the sense that you can use it to orchestrate different threads. So I can say where is this thread coming along, how far through is it, start a new thread, do this in this project using GPT 5.6 extra high, whatever. So that orchestration layer is very preferable in a way for like that Codex offers, especially with the voice mode, and so that's why I use Codex a lot at the moment, almost as a daily driver kind of thing. Equally, just because, yeah, I'm doing a lot of work out of the house, away from my laptop, doing it through my phone, and I just find the ability to work remotely with Codex is much better than it is in Claude Code if you're trying to work remotely on a local computer versus working on the cloud. I think Claude Code is fine when it comes to working on the cloud, but I prefer to connect to my local computer at home, which is kind of just running as like a home server, even though it's just my laptop. That's why I prefer. So I think when it comes to 5.6 versus Fable 5, I don't think there's much in it. I do think Fable 5 is marginally more intelligent, but so that being said, a lot of the stuff I've had 5.6 Sol do, especially on Ultra, is comparable certainly to the outputs I'm getting from Claude, if I'm comparing them. Not that I run it on Ultra all the time. I do also now feel that Fable 5 is better than Opus 5, kind of definitively. I don't know if I want to say definitively. I mean, I think that probably always was the case, but I feel like when Opus 5 first came out, everyone was like, oh, Opus 5 is so good. And I do think it's still good. And it is still probably arguably Fable 5 level almost. Certainly more than halfway there, which means that in terms of pricing, given that it's half the price, it's probably more bang for your buck. However, maybe it's been, nerfed a little bit, like they sometimes do, or it feels they sometimes do, to Claude models. But yeah, I think Opus 5 is still viable, but I do now prefer Fable 5 when it comes to the Anthropic models at the moment. Also, I hear that we're meant to be getting GPT-6 next week, so that might actually rival Fable 5, if not beat it potentially. Well, actually, I don't know if it is coming out next week. I've heard that a little bit, but then I saw something saying that they're now treating it as like a critical model. So I guess that means they're going to have to be more careful with their release of it, I guess, because similar thing like Fable 5 with the potential dangers of people having access to it. So we'll see. But when it comes out, that should be good. But no, I mean, other than going on a massive tangent, I guess the takeaway here is I agree that GPT 5.6 Sol absolutely is a very viable alternative to the Anthropic models. Almost preferable for some situations. It is probably faster, feels a little bit easier to communicate with it sometimes, and yeah, being able to use fast mode on it on the subscription plan rather than having to pay directly for that is nice. But even better, I'd say, is using the combination of both 5.6 Sol and Fable 5. Just having them work in the same system as we were discussing earlier, but working in each app individually. Right, what AI automation are you actually using every day, looking for real-world suggestions? Right, what automations do I have? Basically, I mean, a lot of them revolve around kind of the production of this YouTube video, this daily series. So the research for this, collecting these questions, putting them into a deck, that is all a Codex scheduled task, basically. What else do I have? I have one that is, as I've mentioned maybe a few times in the past, I have a kind of filing system, or like a kind of Andrej Karpathy style wiki, if you want to call it that, which has, and then Claude and Codex both understand how that filing system works, and then every night, I think at 2 a.m. or something, I have something that runs, and I think it basically it looks through like any call transcripts from the day, any sessions I did with Claude Code and Codex, any like artifacts or work I produced, and then based on that kind of files and reconciles the documents within that filing system. So time to time it creates a new folder, like a new page. Like if there's someone with whom I've had a call that day, it will make a page for them within the people's folder if I haven't had a call with them before. If I had a call with them and it discovered some new facts and their page already exists, it will add them to add those to that page and kind of reconcile any inconsistencies. And so that's a kind of daily automation that just keeps everything a little bit better in order, because I am probably not organized enough to do that myself, even though some people are. I also have one that is a little bit, definitely could be improved, but fundamentally, like, the architecture is all there for it to work if someone were looking to do it at a better, kind of more reliable scale. But I have something that's just, scans my inbox, checks, and then drafts responses and stuff. But it does that by, checking all the context of, like, who is there. So it looks through my email and then sees basically, is there an email from someone who is, like, related to a current piece of work, or they have a page within the people section of the filing system, meaning therefore that they are important. Basically it does that, and so that's another automation. Then I have an automation as well as the automation that makes the kind of research for these videos, does the research and makes the deck. I have an automation that edits the videos, so that runs twice a day or something, just sees if there's any videos there, edits it, comes up with like the upload package of the thumbnail, the title, that sort of thing, and then gets me to check it. I have some other automations that are, some of them are on Hermes, some of them are on Claude Code, which are kind of like a daily thing. It strategizes, looks at all the work I'm doing, and everything that could be potentially useful, decides on a task to do, creates a detailed plan for that, then hands it off to another agent. So I guess it's kind of also almost an automated graph, hands it off to another agent who then goes and executes on that plan, and then another agent kind of reviews it and all of that sort of stuff. So yes, so I have that automation that is basically like a kind of daytime operator, I call it, which while I'm away chooses a high value, high leverage task, strategizes about that. That's with a very intelligent model like a Fable 5. Then has like various sub-agents write up and review a plan that can then be executed sort of autonomously, so almost as a goal loop, so the plan will have very clear criteria for what is done. Then it executes on that and then kind of leaves it for review for me. It is a little bit buggy. It does sort of bug out sometimes and not always work, because sometimes it thinks it's going to, usually it's for a good reason, like it's being overly cautious that it might do something wrong and it thinks it might be interfering with live work. But there's no reason it couldn't work better. All I need to do is just fix it up, which I'll probably do, today or tomorrow, and then it should be working smoothly again, because it has worked in the past. I don't know why it's bugging out a little bit at the moment, but when it works, it's pretty useful, because obviously you get a potentially quite high leverage thing done, and sometimes it's a little bit surprising. I tell it sometimes to think, sort of randomly and out of the box, and therefore that can actually produce you something quite useful that you hadn't planned on doing, or possibly didn't even realise was worth doing. But Claude has found an efficient way to do it, or Hermes, depending on where you want to set that up. Other automations. I used to have an automation for cold outreach on LinkedIn. Then in terms of like both lead gen and actually messaging people on LinkedIn, I turned that off because I just wasn't interested in like doing cold outreach to people in that industry anymore. I've just set one up yesterday, so it hasn't run yet, but what I was doing was, and this is I think the strategy you should take, it was a task that I had been doing sort of collaboratively with Codex, so that's like how the YouTube video editing ended up becoming an automation. I did it enough times that Codex understood what I liked and that sort of thing, and then I said, okay, let's just automate this. And that's another useful thing actually. One thing I did with Codex is I just said, based on all the sessions we've had recently, what is something that I can ask you consistently that should be turned into an automation? Just do that with Claude Code or Codex. It will give you some useful ideas. But anyway, back to the one I was setting up yesterday. So I had been doing kind of like running cold email campaigns, or starting to run cold email campaigns collaboratively with Codex, whereas it would be like, I would say, okay, go find some leads, I'll review them, go make some assets to send to them, I'll review them. And just yesterday, I've decided to scale that up. So what I've now got is Codex kind of on a kind of automated thing. I think it's a daily automation. Essentially goes and, I think it uses Apify or something. Oh no, I think it uses Firecrawl or something. Firecrawl to scrape for leads, find leads, enrich them using the Apollo MCP, then just code up like a simple, I think I've got like a set list of 10 proof assets it could give for people, whether that's like a revamped landing page for their website, a quiz for their website, like if they've done recent interviews or something, clip that up, give them some short form clips they could post as content, that sort of thing. It decides which one is a good one to do, builds it, and then kind of writes copy in a pretty standardized way that we've agreed about the emails, and then enriches them using the Apollo MCP, and then loads them all into Instantly using the MCP for that as well. Or I think maybe I connect it instantly through the Composio MCP, but it's all kind of much of a muchness. And so that automation hasn't started being running autonomously yet, but I see no real reason why it shouldn't work. So that's another kind of automation you can do. And then feeding into that as a pipeline, and I can't take full credit for this idea, it comes from Cody Schneider, who is very interesting if you're interested in Claude Code and Codex for actual kind of knowledge work, or for his case, marketing specifically. He calls it go-to-market engineering, but I think it's a very interesting field. And just, one of the ones which is really developing as people use coding agents for knowledge work more and more. He has something which is basically where you will scrape engagement from social media accounts related to the area of business or area of interest of your ICP, and then based on who's engaged in, let's say on a LinkedIn post, you then use the Apollo MCP to enrich those and then add them to your cold email pipeline. So those are some of the automations that you can set up. I've mentioned it before, I have an automation that checks SEO and AEO for my business, and that's only once a week, and then tries to improve it, and then sees whether what it did worked or not and reflects on that. So that's another automation. But so you can automate a lot, but I'd say the best strategy is just do your work normally as you would, but enhanced by Codex or Claude Code. So work augmented first, and I've said this before, augment and then automate. And once you've done, at the end of a week or something, say, what have I done lots of times this week with you as sort of one-off sessions that we should have just automated. That's the strategy I would take. As perfect timing, the Kimi K3 website has opened itself for me. So I actually quite like this, I'm not going to lie. Okay, I like this little interactive, I don't know, well, moon I guess it's meant to be because it's a moon shot. Okay, this is cool, I like this. Capabilities. I mean, it doesn't look yes, it has kind of some of these, I wouldn't call them AI slop, but these kind of beveled boxes and little symbols are quite standard AI. But I like this little glow around the mouse thing, and the way they kind of light, what would you call that, light up when you hover over them. Demo. Okay, this is nice. Okay, this is very nice actually. Alright, this is a cool demo. This is really cool. What happens if I click there? Start building. Nothing as far as I can tell. Okay, but still. Okay, and you can scroll. Alright, now I'm impressed. I'm impressed so far. Yeah, I mean, everyone does say Kimi K3 is particularly good at front-end design, and I'm impressed with this. Okay, so it takes you to the Kimi platform. Do I want to download the weights? Probably not. Probably don't have storage for that, but I could if I wanted to. Takes you to Hugging Face. What does this do? Takes you to Moonshot AI. Okay. Right, and it seems like this little kind of circle thing that follows the mouse was based off of Moonshot's AI. I see. Fair enough though. That probably takes you to... Yeah, okay. Fair enough. Oh, what happens if I press careers? Oh, it takes me to Moonshot AI again. Okay, so I guess this is heavily influenced by Moonshot AI, but fair enough. I'm impressed with that, but that does prove the point for whatever that question was. The third question: can you use other models in Claude Code? Yes, you can. 13 minutes end to end, not too bad. Only 41 cents, pretty good, and it one-shot it. So yeah, I'm quite impressed with that. This wasn't meant to be like a Kimi K3 review. Because that's probably, time for those videos has sort of passed. I feel like that was a thing a couple of weeks ago, which in AI is quite a significant amount of time. But as a separate note, I am impressed by what Kimi has done here, and that does prove that you can use Claude Code, use other models in Claude Code 13 minutes, now that I think about it, just for this isn't like brilliant, but it's not too bad. Yep, that will be it for today, I think. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. If you did enjoy, feel free to subscribe. Just to mention again, if you'd like to work with me, see how AI can fit into your business, or how you can build your own AI operating system, I will coach you through that one-to-one. And yeah, just feel free to book or feel free to get in contact through the link in the description. And if you're interested in the school community, the link for that will be in the description too. But thank you very much for watching, everyone. I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.